And I quote, "I'll be there in a minute. Give me a second."
Time is relative, folks. Time is relative.
Yes. So hey, cheers to everybody in the chat. They're a division rival. I don't care how many wins they get. Screw them.
That wasn't the take I was expecting to hear.
I want to gush over watching live Chris Tanev.
I think that we completely underestimate the skill it takes to play defense.
One highlight or several highlights does not a Calder trophy make.
I'm stepping in here. I'm going to be the crotchety old man here. They need to learn patience. They need to understand the tension, and everything, and the drama.
How dare! Look at this. How is McDavid not getting a penalty?
You guys need to calm down with this, okay? You guys need to calm down with it.
Yes, even on a night with no hockey. Welcome to the Shifts and Pucks podcast. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter at Shifts and Pucks, Facebook.com Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com Shifts and Pucks, as well as, of course, subscribe wherever you get your audio. YouTube. We're also on Blue Sky at Shifts and Pucks Blue Sky something, and you could also follow
social.
We're all on the socials. Follow us on the socials at Shifts and Pucks. We're here. Happy American Thanksgiving for those that celebrate American Thanksgiving. We say
actually, Kev, I'm going to put you on the spot right away. You made a Facebook post today saying that American Thanksgiving is better than Canadian Thanksgiving. Defend yourself, sir.
Okay, so American Thanksgiving is better than Canadian Thanksgiving because it is a 4-day weekend with the addition of Black Friday. It's the start of the Christmas holiday season, and it's American football all day. And they talk about food a lot better than us Canadians do.
Okay, so they bend culture around it, but as far as timing, I stand by Canadian Thanksgiving is timed better.
I actually think it's American Thanksgiving is timed better because it leads you
No, it's
right.
not. It's way too damn close to Christmas.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, it's not a 4-day weekend. It's not a 4-day weekend. Ask anyone who works retail.
Well, I've worked retail. I've worked in the. I've done the Christmas
shopping.
You worked
in retail in Canada. Black Friday down in the States is not a holiday. That is war down there.
Oh no, I know it. I know that, but I think I get myself more prepared for Christmas once it's American Thanksgiving. It gets me into the Christmas season. It feels too long of Christmas stuff from October into.
Well, that's not an issue with American Thanksgiving and timing. That's an issue on people not understanding that things have a process and an order. You don't just switch over from Halloween to Christmas.
No, I'm talking about Canadian Thanksgiving though, which is before Halloween.
Exactly. So it goes Labor Day, then you've got Canadian Thanksgiving.
We're into the fall.
Yeah, and then Canadian Thanksgiving is fine. It's perfect. It's where the harvest is.
It symbolizes that we're into hockey season.
Yes, and then you've got Halloween,
which is Halloween. And American Thanksgiving,
and then you have Remembrance Day or Veterans Day down in the States.
Yeah, that's Remembrance Day.
Yeah, and then then comes American Thanksgiving, which yes, it does symbolize the start of actual Christmas, like the Christmas season. But
yeah, I can see that. But as far as, and I will admit, I'm purely biased because my birthday falls on a Canadian Thanksgiving weekend. But I think it's timed better in the sense that if you're doing like a big holiday get together with family or friends or what have you, it's properly spaced long enough or far enough apart from Christmas that it doesn't feel too cramped all in one, like basically like a month and a week or what have you away.
You have a gigantic turkey dinner for Thanksgiving at the end of November, and then 3 weeks later you have another gigantic turkey dinner for Christmas. It's too close together.
but it's if you like turkey and stuffing and all the fixins, it's I don't know. I just kind of always preferred the timing of it.
But yeah,
And,
just wonder.
and a lot of this like is what they've just made it into being, right? Like you got 3 NFL games today, and they're now doing an NFL game on Black Friday.
Yep.
Which started last year, right? So it's more of what they've made it into, and it's more of just this gregarious Americanization of a what it should be more of a family holiday. Canadian Thanksgiving is more subdued and just relaxed compared to this just in your face American Thanksgiving.
All out American commercialization.
Yes.
Yeah, but we in Canada haven't, like, do you know how many Black Friday commercials are on the air now? Because I hear them all the time at work.
I don't hear the commercials again. Inundated with all the emails about all the sales.
Yeah. So we've kind of, I think Canada is starting to embrace it has embraced the American Thanksgiving way. I would argue a little bit more than the Canadian Thanksgiving way. But I mean, you could argue.
No, we haven't. No,
Canada's embraced Black Friday.
Black Friday is not Thanksgiving, though. It's the commercial. It's a commercialization.
A lot of people that take American Thanksgiving.
It's not Thanksgiving. It's another way for people to sell their shit and take our money.
Oh, that's yeah.
Ultimately, I'm with Sean on this, but I just wanted to keep Kevin on his toes to start off the podcast.
Fair enough. There's a lot of things that will be keeping us on our toes in this podcast, including goaltending, but basically talking to gamuts of the Canucks situation, and we'll get into some other NHL news in particular in as well. But we start with the I just want to pull something up here because we are at the point of American Thanksgiving is also symbolizes in theory who will be in the playoffs or not. And the Canucks at this point are in the second.
No, it's not that simple.
Well, who's
out of the playoffs.
Well, I'm just going to say this, and we'll dig into this a little bit more. I think the American Thanksgiving theory will be broken down severely this year because as we look at the standings, things are very close and clustered in both conferences, both the East and the West. So, but the Canucks are one of the best road teams in the NHL. They are 8-2. Kevin Lankinen has yet to lose on the road. However, on Wednesday, the Arthur Silovs got the starting goal. The Penguins jumped out to a 5-1 lead, and then they almost penguined it. And ended up being 5-4. The Canucks made a late run, but it wasn't enough. But let's start with Kevin Lankinen. And my question I will throw out to you to keep you up on your toes. Is he the team MVP this year?
I mean, as of right now, he's definitely has his name in consideration up there with Quinn Hughes.
Yeah, it's one of those two if you're going to name one at this point.
Also, my question in response to that is he pricing himself out of Vancouver on his next contract?
Yes.
Well, at this point he is, I think.
If he keeps this up, yes.
Keeps this up. Right? I mean, I feel like I kind of think that in some ways, I think, we're going to assume that Kevin, I don't know if Kevin, I think the other situation with this as well is there a number of places that is there more than 5 places that Kevin Lankinen would be a number one goalie right now? Clear cut number one goalie in the NHL right now?
No, but he doesn't need to be.
Okay, so in that case, could you probably toss him out a little bit? I mean, he's making a bar. He's not going to be at the bargain he is now. But I guess the question will be, considering what we have not, we'll get into Demko in a little bit here, but we don't know what Demko is going to be. Are you willing to pay him not necessarily number 1 or 1A, but would you would you overpay him a little bit more than you had to? Am I making sense?
Sorry,
what,
is
what,
he worth?
what is what
Well,
is
I mean,
the
when we're
overpayment?
saying that we're pricing him out of the market, let's kind of look here. He,
would I be willing to pay him like $3 or $4 million a season?
Yeah,
if we
kind
were
of in
to
there.
extend him? Given the fact that Demko's next contract is going to be a big pay raise as well, even with his injury proneness, it depends on how you want to allocate your cap space. But we also don't know how severely how big the jump the cap is going to make over the next few years as well, and who you want to potentially allocate that to. So you can make the argument that you probably could afford Lankinen as a backup at $3 or $4 million in a season behind Demko, and still be able to afford Boeser's next contract with how big the cap's going to jump. I wouldn't be opposed to that.
I think the answer is you have to see where Demko's at before you make this decision.
Yeah.
Because Demko's got 1 more year left on his deal after this one. So what do you say? I think it's not necessarily the cap hit that's the issue with if you're going to re-sign Lankinen, it's the term.
Yeah. I think you're right with that. I think it is more term than money. I mean, I think. And
pull this up from Dylan here. Why are we concerned that Lankinen is doing too good? We're not. We're not concerned that he's playing, but this is fantastic. Without him, we don't know where the Canucks are at this point. But we're talking about the league is becoming more, especially in the regular season, the league has become more of a 2-goalie system, 2-goalie league. This isn't the era of the Kiprasovs and the Luongos playing 60 to 70 games a season. You need your starter, even if you have a true clear-cut starter, is maxing out at 60, and that's even that's a lot.
Let's use the Rangers as an example. Shesterkin is not going to get up to 60 to 70 starts. You're going to have Quick in there for probably a good at least 20, if not 30.
Yeah. Right.
So
exactly.
You need to have a good second goalie. What you pay them is the real question. And the cap is going up, but you also they have to figure out where Demko is at and how much they're going to end up paying him, or if there's.
Sorry, did I lose you?
It maybe is, but I'm also not sure if it's my Wi-Fi.
Oh, I can hear you.
That was me.
Yeah.
So it's I think it's a more of a complicated situation than just extend him now. No, that's because go ahead. Sorry. If it's around 3, if it's in the low 3s, I think if you can get that done for 2 to 3 years, why not? But I don't think he's going to sign. Don't think he's going to settle for that.
Well, I think the one thing that I would say, though, is he did sign here. He did sign here on a cheap deal. I mean, I know that I'm not expecting him to give market value, but I also don't think I think that this whole situation with Lankinen and talking about it is a little bit too early, because we haven't seen Demko yet. We don't know how much time Demko is going to play, or how that's going to work out.
Or if Silovs is going to find his groove again, because right now this is not the same guy that we had in April.
Well, I think just plain and simple with Silovs as we we'll transition over. The only thing that I would say with Lankin is I don't want to be disrespectful to the insiders, but for me, I have a little bit of I would not be surprised if he is more interested in Vancouver than we realize. And I think it might be more easier for that. Like, this is a market. Vancouver is a market where a lot of people want to stick around. Like, it's not like people want to necessarily leave. People like it is a likable market, and if the team is doing well, I wouldn't necessarily discount the idea that Lankinen is gone at the end of the year. Because, I mean, legitimately, if you think that at the trade deadline, you're going to have to ask a question if you should actually trade Lankinen, and you're not going to do that at this particular point in time. So
that's not even a question. Not this deadline, no.
Not this deadline.
It's not. It's not. You're again. It's a two goalie league. You've got Silovs who's really struggled here. You've got Demko whose durability is going to be questioned the whole season. You're gonna want to make sure that Demko isn't overplayed, and Lankinen's played well enough that you're going to keep him there's no, unless the Canucks completely fall out of it. Really, it's why would you trade him?
Yeah,
of course, makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, and that's the other thing with this two goalie kind of where we are at with the NHL. It just makes me wonder, and maybe I'm the over optimist here. It makes me wonder I don't know if a situation that is better for Lankinen than what it is right here in Vancouver right now.
That is true. The only way I could see a potential trade with Lankinen is if Demko is playing lights out, Silovs finds his form again, and Lankinen has played well enough, like he has so far, that he can get you that like big trade deadline acquisition to push you over the top in the playoffs. That's the only possibility I could see where a Lankinen trade makes sense this season.
And goalies are not well valued in the trade market. So
yeah.
Remember to tell that to Flames fans, Sean, with Dan Vladar, that they think they're going to get the moon, the stars, and the sky with Dan Vladar. But I'm kind of at the same. I mean, I'll say that I'll just leave it here with Lankinen. I would say the same. I've said the same thing with the Flames with Vladar that I would say with the Canucks with Lankinen. I think that you need to consider keeping him. I think it is better to have two good goalies than one good goalie. And with Silovs, unfortunately he needs a season in Abbotsford. He needs that work in Abbotsford. He's just not quite ready. He will be ready. He needs a full season. He's not ready. He was phenomenal during the playoffs, and he needs a full season in Abbotsford to get
another full season.
Yeah. I think that I don't think there's anything other than that to say about the situation.
Like, I think maybe Lankinen might be smitten with his current situation and how well things have gone so far, but I could also easily see him dismissing himself and like being like, it was nice, it was a slice, but I'm going to go to a different team because I think I'm worth more.
But who's going to pay him? Yeah. That's the question.
There's 31 other teams. I'm sure there's one team that's willing to overpay.
Yeah,
or
maybe.
Pay,
well,
pay. Like, you've got Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Outside of Jari, like, he's their number one, and that's like a 1A at best.
Yeah.
Like, you got Pittsburgh, you've got Carolina, whose goalies just keep getting injured. So depending on what that'd be an option. Like, there's more than enough teams that would be out there willing to give Lankinen a 2-3 year deal at a decent cap hit.
But let's not be Dylan and endlessly try and have trade proposals for getting rid of our top goalie like he does with Gibson.
Yeah. As far as Demko, I mean, I guess quite simply, we wait until whatever the start is, which could be on the road trip, could be on next time they're at home, Could be before Christmas, could be after. Like, we really don't know. I mean, it sounds like it's close. He's on the road trip. Whether he plays or not, I think we're still in a wait and see mode.
Well, it sounds like we've been saying this for a couple weeks now, but it does sound pretty imminent at this point.
Yeah.
They said it sounds like he's getting as close as he can be to being a game time decision. So,
like I said last week on the podcast episode last week, if it's the fact that it's Demko talking to the media, giving the updates. So if that is, I consider that a real update, not all the reporter/insider non-update updates of he's making progress.
Yeah. Can they not? Is there not a way that he could do a rehab game in Abbotsford? That's really unfortunate, eh?
Conditioning stint.
I mean, they probably could. We've seen other teams do it. I'm sure they could do that.
Yeah. I'm sure there's something in the CBA or contracts or what have you that allows you to do that on a short-term basis.
Yeah, I'm surprised it hasn't been proposed as an option yet, but we'll see.
I mean, they're just. I think it's because no one knows, right? Once he is sort of game time or whatever, maybe that's an option depending on where the Canucks are and where the Abbotsford Canucks are. I wouldn't like if they're both at home, then maybe that's an option. But I don't think you're sending him to some random AHL city
to Bakersfield.
Yeah. I'm thinking you want him in Abbotsford to do the rehab assignment because then you get the fans out and create a little bit of buzz for the Yabby Canucks too, right? But,
yeah. That's the only way it really makes sense.
So that's the goaltending situation in a nutshell. And, all things considered for that, though, I think it's gone pretty well. And, it's kudos to Lankinen for being pretty solid so far. The defense has been the biggest topic of complaints. And, of course, did not help today with the news about Philip Hronek, who faced has sustained an injury. The length we don't know. According to Irfan Ghaffar, it doesn't sound like he needs surgery. The play appears as a play that he got hit into the boards in Pittsburgh last night. And by the way, holy cow, empty seats in Pittsburgh, eh? Wow.
I'll be flat out honest. I got off work. Yeah, I got off work and the score is 5-1. And I said, I'm not subjecting myself to this.
Well, fair enough. But there was a lot of empty seats. Anyway, so this is already a blue line that a lot of people were saying. We've already had these discussions that the Canucks are going to need to upgrade the blue line, and I mean that is a priority, and it's now probably a bigger priority depending on the length of Hronek being out. I don't think Hronek has been as bad as other people. I think he's been pretty solid overall. I do think that this is it's a significant loss, whether you like it or not. I mean, I guess the question.
Hronek and Hughes together have been fantastic, and Hronek when he against Ottawa was really good as well. The thing with Hronek, he hasn't put up the points that he did last year to start the season. So then when you're box, like just stat watching, it's not leaves you wanting more, but he's been fine. He's been very solid for the Canucks.
Yeah, he hasn't been a detriment at all. He just hasn't been a standout either. Yeah,
it's been the other four that have been question marks for one reason or another. I'd even say I think there's three. The three spots haven't been good for the most part. I think Brandstrom has come in and almost has outplayed the other defenseman outside of that top pair.
I would say the biggest detriment for the defense has been the apparent, at least so far this season, decline of Myers and Soucy.
Yeah,
or at least a funk, if not decline.
They just when you look at their underlying stats, they're not giving up many expected goals, but they're just getting scored on. They're getting unlucky, but they're also they're not part of that, but they're also not playing well enough either. So it's going to be the Canucks were probably looking to upgrade the blue line before the Hronek injury. Now it becomes even almost more of a priority, and they have to find a way to do it when the Sharks are in the water and trying to fleece them.
Okay, so I have a quick question since we're talking about defense and the question marks on it. If I recall, Forbort went on a personal leave of absence and then came back from that. That also was around the same time that we got Brandstrom, and Brandstrom has been in the lineup almost every game since then. So I guess my question is Forbort basically just a healthy scratch right now?
No, he's
injured.
He's injured.
Okay, I clearly missed this injury update then.
Yeah, he got injured in a practice, I believe, and he's out. So,
and Hronek is being kind of like 50-50 as far as whether he's a healthy scratcher in the lineup, right?
I believe he's healthy right now.
Yeah, he is healthy. Juleson is outplaying him, I think, is the fairest way to say. So I guess let's start. With this, I think part of this, let's go pre-Hronek injury, because I think this is before we go to Hronek injury and what happens forward. What were the realistic what were you thinking are the trade options that the Canucks would be willing to put on the table to upgrade their defense?
Well, you're looking at basically first-round pick. You're looking at Höglander. You're looking at any prospect not named Willander or Lekaramaki, unless you're getting a absolute stud right shot defenseman coming back.
Preferably with term.
Yes. So it's like they do have pieces. It's just whether or not the pieces make
and because
sense
you also need to free up the space, you're probably also throwing in a Susie or a Myers or a Forbort or one of those questionable players that you probably want to move out to make room for whoever's coming in.
Yeah. I'm sure if they had more cap space, the move would have already been done. But you've seen basically with all the transactions that the Canucks have done, trying to accumulate and as much cap space on off days as they can. They're doing their best to try enough cap space to do it without taking away too much off the current roster. But at this point, there's probably going to have to be some sort of significant cap going the other way, depending on who they're picking up.
And that's the real question mark, is who would they be potentially picking up? And that's really how you would figure out what package is going back the other way, is basing on who you're getting in the first place. So just a question mark hypothetical, it's hard to really answer with any specificity.
Okay, so let's go through. Let us do this. There's two big names right now that have apparently been floated about. And so let's start with the younger one, which is David Jiricek. I personally don't see this. I don't know if I have saw this as a fit. I know that there are reports where the Canucks asked. I'm assuming I go into all of these assuming that every team asks about every player. So it's not news to me that the Canucks asked about David Jiricek. If you're not asking, you're not doing your job.
Yeah, I was going to basically say we've repeated this multiple times over multiple seasons at this point. You're not doing your job if you're not answering or picking up the phone and at least exploring possibilities. Doesn't mean you're actually making moves, but you always are in discussion and trying to figure out what ifs.
I just don't know at this point, with the way that Myers and Susie is playing, the way that what is going on with Hronek, that you want another guy that you're not quite sure where fits. That's my concern with David Jiricek.
Jiricek is more of a you're hoping that the price isn't too expensive, and that him coming to a new fresh start, and you wouldn't be throwing him to the wolves in that situation. He may if they would acquire him, I wouldn't be surprised if they start him in Abbotsford and just play him and just give him ice time instead of the low ice time that he's been getting in Columbus, and just talk to him and tell him, like, look, we want you to get ice time, get reps, and then if you play well and we expect you to, we'll call you up and you'll play good. You'll play the minutes in the NHL. The Jiricek move would not be a immediate fix if the Canucks
it's more budget shopping with the hope of a fresh start works out for you.
It's not even a budget shop though. That's the thing. Is he's only 20 years old. He's 6'3" right shot defenseman with pedigree. So you're gonna have to pay for it. So it's just whether or not they can acquire him without giving up anything more significant than the first round pick, which I think is what it would require on the Canucks side.
Yeah, I guess I was saying more budget in the sense of like it's not like you're picking up a big name guy.
Yeah. I mean, he is big. He is a big name because he was a top pick in the draft.
Yeah, I guess what I'm
he's
more
not
like
established
level big name.
He's not established. Yeah.
He has played under 10 minutes his last 3 games against Boston, the Kings, and San Jose, for the record. He played 17 minutes against Washington on November the 2nd. That was actually his last 5 games, his longest ice time. The other name on this bigger name or kind of move the needle name that has come up, he came up in the offseason. There was apparently a trade to Detroit that Trouba turned down. But the word is that the Rangers have put Jacob Trouba on the block. I think that Jacob Trouba is not coming back to the Rangers next year anyway, no matter what. I think everybody knows that. But is this a fit for Vancouver?
I'm going to answer for Sean. He's going to say yes.
I think he fits the Tocchet mold on a defenseman. He's big. He's physical. Like he's not.
Is he your Zadorov replacement in essence?
Yeah, man, he would be. and he's better than Zadorov. He is better than Zadorov. He hasn't played great this season, but he's still. And the intimidation
How old is he now?
factor.
Is he on the upper side as far as age?
He's 30 years old. He's got 1 more year left on his deal after this season at $8 million. Which, to be honest, honestly, go for if again always comes down to price. But I mean, the old
cap going up, it's worth a gamble.
The old school hockey fan in me would just love it, because having him on that blue line, the intimidation factor alone would be fantastic for the Canucks.
That and Sean loves his Trouba choo-choo train.
I love. Just give me. Because you'd have Joshua and Sherwood up front who would just run through everything. Trouba on the back,
it'd be a hard team to play.
The Canucks would be so tough to play against.
And
so
like you said, that's a perfect Tocchet mold. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be it'd be a very interesting fit. I think that, Vancouver, the Rangers, I would assume, will want some pretty significant pieces back. Even with Trouba, you're giving up their captain. So they want to they would want to make a foundational move. I don't hate the idea of Jacob Trouba. I love Jacob Trouba too, even though a lot of people consider me more of a softie. I like Jacob. I know he straddles the line of the way that he hits sometimes. I know some people are not comfortable with the way he hits, but that is, folks, that's part of hockey. That's
he's as Scott. He's as Scott.
A modern day
Stevens
Scott
as you can
Stevens.
get in today's hockey.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's physical.
When you're playing physical, there's times where you just miss time hits.
And that's the gamble that you have to take with that style of player. They're going to have some amazing hits, and they're going to have some questionable ones, and they're going to have some ones where they just wish they didn't make that move at all.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just kind of picturing this, going forward. Can you imagine if Evander Kane comes back, the battles that him and Trouba would have in front of the net in an Oilers Canucks series? I think he would give Kane some fits. I think
the thought of it makes me smile, if that gives you my answer.
I think he would. I think he'd be a perfect villain, and probably better than Zadorov, because I think he's not trying to do too much. I think that one of the things with Zadorov is at times I think he tries to do too much.
Yes, that's very true.
Yeah, I think it's the fact that Trouba, he already knows what he is, whereas Zadorov is still aspirational in I'm better than this, I can play a bigger role than this, I want to be better sort of thing, where, Trouba already knows what he is and what he brings and what he gets paid for.
Yeah. Like, you go into the when Hronek comes back, you could go a top four of, you play Hughes with Trouba, and then you have Hronek carrying his own pairing, whether it's with Soucy or it could be with Brandstrom as well.
I wouldn't even mind a Soucy Trouba pair, and then you move Myers down to 5 with Brandstrom, because I wonder.
Yeah, that works too.
Yeah. I don't think Soucy's the big problem. Like, I honestly don't. I think it's like, I'm not trying to point the finger, but I think
is he struggling? Yes, but is he like
he's not a liability?
Exactly. He's just having a bad string of luck.
And he's more physical than a lot of people realize too. So, and he's an intelligent player. It's, and everybody gets off to a bad start.
Ask any Canucks fan against during that Oilers series if they wanted to get rid of him, and they would have said, hell no.
Yeah. So, and then, you got Myers with Brandstrom, and then, maybe Myers is the guy that goes the other way. Who knows? Right. But
I think if you're picking up a Trouba, either Myers or Soucy is going back the other way. Yeah. You have to have something significant going back at the D.
Yeah, with an $8 million cap hit, you're going to have some sort of significant cap going the other way, and it's one of those guys. And they're not even that significant, but enough that you could probably make it work. Because Soucy's making 3.25 and Myers is just 3.
Yeah.
The issue with Myers is I believe he's got a full no trade at the very least. He's got a full no move, actually.
And is Soucy a UFA after this year?
No, he's got one more year after this.
One more, okay.
It was a 3-year,
3-year.
And he's got a full no trade as well for this season. So,
and just because they have a no trade doesn't mean that they're not movable.
No, but they have to agree to it.
Yeah, right? Exactly. So, you just have to work with them to.
That's the thing with Trouba. He's got a full no move clause, so he can control where he goes.
Yeah. As far as other big fish, I got to be honest, I don't see any other ones that I right at this point. I know that there's some clamoring for Rasmus Andersson. I think that right now the Flames are in a playoff spot. Whether they fade or not is another question, but at this point, they're not going to move Rasmus Andersson. and I can't, like, in terms of like guys that we see as legitimate top four, other than maybe Marcus Petter on our as far as a right shot guy, I don't see any. I have some other players that I don't necessarily think are top four, but I'll toss at you. But I don't see a big fish top four out there right now, other than Jacob Trouba or David.
Yeah, outside of anyone who's, I'm looking at it right now, and yeah, there's no one that really screams that like would be available. Which is why I think the Canucks are sniffing around Juracek, because maybe they can get him and turn him into one. And then if they can do it without giving up Willander, and they've got Hronek, Willander, and Juracek going into on the right side, you're fucking set, right? For the future, if both Juracek and Willander turn out.
Yeah. I have discovered a few names I just want to toss if there's any interest. Connor Murphy in Chicago.
You've mentioned him before. I don't mind that as a potential acquisition.
I've also seen his name thrown around on social media as well. Yeah,
he's big. He's physical. He's not a great puck. He's not a great puck mover, but he's not a bad puck mover. I don't know if he can carry a second pair.
That's my question.
But
if we're comparing him to Canucks defensemen, who is he better than and who is he not as good as? Like, where does he fit in that tiering?
Well, I think he's just another sort of player of the Susie Myers ilk.
Okay.
Where I think if they can get the right pairing with him, he's someone you could pair with Hughes and then have Hronek run a pair. Maybe. I think with a lot of the names that like Kevin's going to throw at us here, it's all about fit and whether or not you think that you could pair them with Quinn Hughes without too much of a drop off for Hughes' game, and you can have Hronek run a pair.
These other guys, I don't think you can pair with Hughes, but I'm just going to toss about. What about Scott Mayfield with the Islanders?
I don't know enough about him to even have an opinion, so I'm going to defer to Sean here.
He'd be a budget Zadorov, or even more of a budget, like he'd just be another like Derek Forbort. Is actually a better way of putting it.
Okay. This guy makes $1 million, but he does have some playoff experience. Eric Johnson in Philadelphia.
Again, I think I don't know if that really fixes what the Canucks are looking for. I think what the Canucks need is either someone with some potential that can shake up the depth chart, or on the right side, or someone who just does it immediately.
Yeah. It's kind of my struggle with what I was looking at. I mean, the other one is David Savard, but I think a couple of years ago that would have been a great option. I don't think that's a great option now.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of
the one player I think I would look at, maybe depending on where this team ends up later, is Andrew Peeke with Boston.
Yeah, that's an interesting guy too. I still think Boston's going to be in the battle for the playoffs.
Yeah,
I mean, it will be a question.
He's an RFA. He's 26 years old. Well, he will be an RFA. No, so he'll be a UFA but he's got one more year left at 2.75.
Yeah. It is not. I think the point is there's not a lot out there right now. So
no,
it's kind of. But so you're kind of.
I would say one player, and I know he's much maligned. But he's also on Philly is Rasmus Ristolainen.
That's a lengthy contract, though.
He's in year 3 of 5 at 5.1.
Yeah.
He's got 2 years after this year. So I think that's a name to maybe look at, depending on if you're looking for, as Chris was talking about, sort of a budget. You could probably get the acquisition cost may not be that big, and yes, he can be a bit. If you're looking for someone who could be a bit another sort of Zadorov, but on the right side, that could be it.
Yeah. The problem right now too is everybody's kind of bunched up here, and we don't know. We don't have that separation yet, where the teams are sellers yet.
We don't know who the buyers or sellers are. Everyone thinks they're buyers still.
Yeah.
Well,
The
it's
other guy
more
that
like you're trying to make hockey trades more than anything else at this point.
Yeah. The other one I just wanted to toss out was Nick Jensen in Ottawa.
I looked at him. I was like, that. I think that would be a nice one, because I think he'd be a calming influence on whatever pair he's on. Again, it comes down to what happens with Ottawa.
Yeah.
So I think they'll hold on to him until they know that they're a seller, if they actually are.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Is he a former Canuck?
No, there was another Nick Jensen, but
okay,
he was a forward.
Okay. I was like, that name sounds really familiar.
Yeah.
And just quickly before we move on, just so we can respond to Dylan here, Marcus Pettersson's a left shot. I think especially with Hronek out, I think they need to make sure that they get someone who can play the right side. So ideally, a right shot guy.
I think the right shot side was always the priority for the Canucks anyway, even before the Hronek injury.
Yeah.
So,
because again, if you find someone to play with Quinn Hughes and move Hronek down to run his own pair, or have someone who can come in and run that second pair, then you're good.
But outside of the right shot thing, like the other things that Dylan was talking about wasn't incorrect.
I mean, Pettersson would be an interesting ad, but again, I just don't.
The only thing I would complain about is too many Petterssons at that point.
well, at least his name isn't Elias or Elias, right? So
True. But it's getting to the point where it's just like, which PD is this? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But okay, speaking of Hughes, there was a controversial play in that game against Ottawa. By the way, we should give kudos for that Canucks win in Ottawa, which I think was probably their most resilient. No Miller, no Boeser, and no Hughes for most of the game, and they still pulled out the win. And kind of, quite frankly, I'm just going to say it, by the way, Ottawa's the most immature team in the National Hockey League. They are so easily rattled. It's ridiculous to me. Just... you just have to meow and they get frustrated. There's just a complete lack of maturity on this team. Anyway, I thought that was one of their more resilient. But the play that was controversial was the Hughes penalty on Josh Norris, which ended up being a game misconduct because Norris was bleeding. This is what frustrates me about the game misconduct is Norris goes to the dressing room, and not 2 minutes later, he comes out and says, "Put me in, coach. I'm fine." And I just
they're still on the power play.
Yeah, I just don't. I'm not a big fan of that. I just, especially if you're giving out
I can understand not being a fan of it. But it wasn't intentional in the sense of like he faked it and then took advantage of that on purpose. Like it wasn't planned in that sort of sense. It was awkward. It was unfortunate. It was unlucky in how it all played out. Because in any other situation, that's probably not a game misconduct.
Yeah, that play happens so much in every game, but the way the NHL is being officiated now because of the review systems that are in place, that's why that got called.
Yeah.
And I'll read out what Kevin asked Tyler, who can't be here today, about it. He says soft call that likely doesn't get called without review, but with them going to review, it was the only ruling they could make. And just to
basically the fact that Norris was bleeding kind of forced their hand, if you will.
Yes. Meanwhile, you've got the play that Hronek got injured on was also a check from behind, but because he wasn't visually injured, it went no call. So yeah, it's one of those ones, but because of the review system in place, once it went to review, it was going to be a 5-minute major.
Yeah,
it's why Tyler hates the and I agree with him. He hates it because it takes the instinctual reading of the game away from the officials, and they're just going straight to the video. And even then, like we're seeing plays that just don't feel right and don't feel correct.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand it being a penalty. I don't think it was a game misconduct.
No.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, in almost any other situation of how that play normally plays out, it likely wouldn't have been. It's just unlucky and just kind of a fluke chance that it did work out that way. Norris tried to turn at the last second, fell awkwardly, and in combination with Hughes' stick to his like back of the top of the pants, it was a combination of unfortunate factors.
Yeah. Let's get to the forwards. We had one debut this week, Max Sasson, who does he have the hair quality that his last name is expected here?
I mean, he doesn't have Boeser flow, so you can maybe use that against him, but
I'm just more happy about for his dad, who just was pure entertainment.
Pure amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, that was Hockey Dad gold.
Yeah. It's great to see when these debuts, and you saw that with Lecker too, the family getting involved, and you saw that with Max Sasson's dad too. It is great to see that too, and I'm glad that lots of complaints about the national telecast. The one thing that they have been getting right is the parents for the kids. I think they've done a phenomenal job finding them and adding that element into the broadcast. I think that's been great.
Yeah.
And with Sasson, the one thing that Talk had said is he didn't want to take him out of the lineup, but with Boeser returning, it was an unfortunate situation. So this is a situation that he's going to, like him and Arshdeep Bains and Atu Ratu, and there is some competition for some spots in this lineup, and it is putting more pressure on Niels Höglander to play a bit better, play a lot better than he is playing right now. We've just got competition in the bottom four. The bottom three here. There is competition, and that's the reality of the situation. And there are players on this team that are pushing for lineup spots, and Max Sasson is one of them.
Yeah, and it's been one of the bright spots of the Canucks, like prospect depth, if you will, showing how like some of them do have NHL chops. Are they going to be everyday regular NHLers? Maybe not, but it's been the deepest that the prospect pool has been in quite a few years, if not a decade.
Yep. Yeah, they've done a really good job with that. And then, of course, Brock Boeser did return from his injury, whatever that injury was, and he's playing with Teddy, like we all predicted. He joined the line of Teddy Blueger and Danton Heinen. I assume, assume whenever JT Miller comes back, he will be back on that line, but kind of hard to break up that Pettersson, DeBrusk, Sherwood line. I think should be a permanent line. And then you got Joshua and Garland together. It's almost kind of, this is where you put Boeser at this point until JT Miller returns. I don't see any other way that you do that unless someone else has.
I'd be tempted to put Boeser on P's wing until Miller's back.
Maybe if you
as good as Sherwood has played.
I'm not sure you just throw it into a game situation, but yeah.
As good as Sherwood has played, I think it's you need to give Boeser player like more offensive players to play with.
It feels like Sherwood has found. This is a chicken and egg argument, but it feels like Sherwood has allowed Petey to play his game. That's sort of why I'm kind of wanting to stick that together. But I think eventually, at some point, when it is. I hate to. I don't want to. It is your. You do have the option to go to Petey and Boeser if you need a goal. I don't. Right, like you can always switch that around, but
that's a good power play line. But as far as like, I almost kind of want to counter a question with a question in the sense of like, do you think that PD is at his best if he has one skilled guy and one gritty guy on his line, as opposed to like any other type dynamic on PD's line? Is that what allows him to excel the most?
Well, I don't think that he struggled because it wasn't like he never really played a lot with Boeser last year during the second half of the year. That was part of the struggle. I guess maybe the counter question to your question is are we being too fragile with PD? Like
I don't think it's. I think it's not fragile. Fragile is the wrong word. I think we're just overthinking it. I think PD just was in a massive slump, and when he's on, it doesn't matter who he plays with.
Right.
Yeah, it's maybe catering too much to his cerebralness, for lack of a better way to word it.
And the reason I think you need to give. I think it's more about giving Boeser someone to play with. It's like there's nothing against Blueger and Heinen, but like Boeser's one hell of a shooter and one hell of a player, and I feel like it's again no disrespect to those two players, but it's a waste to have Boeser on that line. Like if anything, if you're not going to put him on the right side with PD, then I think, and this might help with Höglander. I think you have Höglander on one side, and I'd rather have Boeser on the line with Ratu and Höglander and see if that can be something.
Yeah. I mean, you could always put, what do you got? You got Suter with Joshua and Garland now, right? And then Blueger, Heinen, Boeser, Pettersson, DeBrusk, Sherwood. And then you got the Ratu, and then you got that fourth line with Ratu and Höglander and everybody else.
Yeah. Well, they sent Baines down today.
Right. Yeah.
That's why I said whoever the call-up is. Yeah.
They sent Baines down to make room for Mark Friedman.
It doesn't hurt to put PD and Boeser, but eventually probably will be together. But probably when Miller is back, you got Miller and Boeser together, and PD DeBrusk. I think this PD DeBrusk and Sherwood line should stick together as long as possible. I like
ride it while it's hot is what you're saying.
Yeah, and then you can probably go back to the third line with Blueger, Carlin, and Joshua. And then Danton Heinen can play center too, right? He's been able to play both.
He's more of a winger, though.
Yeah. And now you can move.
What I love about the center position when you look at all the sites is everyone's listed as a center.
Yeah, when you look at the depth charts across all the cap-friendly clones now, that's a very true point.
Even on Hockey Reference or like a Hockey DB, if they played center in junior, they're listed as a center.
And if you're a forward, you've probably played center at one point in your career, so everyone's a center.
Yeah.
So I just think it until Miller gets back, I just want to see them. I want to see the top players play with each other and see.
Yeah, that's fair. I definitely see your point in the sense of like, if it's like a 1 or 2 game thing, yeah, maybe Boeser on the third line just to get his feet under him again, what have you. But if let's say Miller's out for, hypothetically, for another 3 weeks, yeah, you want to have Boeser playing with more skill in that time frame.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was trying to do something there. Hopefully they're not rushing Miller back. So whatever he has to go through, he's able to make his time.
From everything that we've seen reported so far, it seems like they are very much just supporting Miller in whatever he needs to get through this, and they're not rushing him. I don't get that sense in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else with the Canucks we need to talk about?
No, I think we pretty much covered it.
All right. Let us get through the other NHL. There is Jim Montgomery is unlike a lot of people that go through the unemployment line. He goes through the unemployment line, steps into line, and then just gets out of that line really quickly. So he's fired by the Boston Bruins on Monday. 5 days later, almost a week later, he is hired by the St. Louis Blues. They replaced Drew Bannister with Jim Montgomery for the simple reason that Jim Montgomery is Jim Montgomery, and you just wanted Jim Montgomery. That's just the fact of the matter. That's why they hired him.
It was the familiarity factor.
Yeah. Coached with St. Louis before. He's now back again. I actually think, you know what? I can't blame him. I cannot blame the St. Louis Blues for doing this. If you think that the coach is the right guy, just grab him and let everybody else fight.
I concede that, yes, but I also, maybe it's the empath in me, but like I do feel for Bannister in this regard.
Yeah, 22 games, and
I feel like he wasn't really given a real fair shake. Like, yeah, he was given the interim status at the end of last season, but then they gave him a 2-year deal in the offseason, and it's not like he was bad enough to get fired. They just liked a guy that they liked more and decided, we're going to go with him instead. He just got the short straw.
Yeah. I do feel for him. But at the same time, with I do understand why they did it in terms of like grab the guy you want, because
from a pragmatic organizational approach, totally get it.
Yeah. I guess, Sean, were you going to say something?
No, you guys covered it.
Now, I guess this also leads to who is next on that proverbial hot seat. And
from what I've been reading, I want to say probably Lalonde, depending on how Detroit does over the next week or so.
They're only 2 points out of a playoff spot.
All I'm saying is I've seen rumblings that he's the guy that's next on that list. So when you brought up that question, that's the name that popped into my brain.
If anyone needs to be on the hot seat in Detroit, it's Stevie Y.
It's Yzerman. Absolutely. The Yzer plan is the Yzer plan is not working in Detroit. Sorry. And everyone who thought that Steve Yzerman was brilliant is sorry, you were wrong, and it's time for you to admit it.
Was it Brisebois all along in Tampa? Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, the fact of the matter is they got a number of number one picks that worked with Stamkos and Hedman, and it clicked, and he hasn't really fallen with his plan, though. That's the problem with the Yzer plan, is everybody thinks that this is this young team that has developed. They're the second oldest team in the league behind Edmonton. He spent a whole bunch of money on free agents, and people just completely ignored it. He overpaid for Ben Sherrod. He overpaid for Andrew Kopp. He overpaid for that blue line. And then he's trading people for that is not named Moritz Seider. That Jake Wallman trade turned out to be that Jake Wallman trade is a terrible trade for Detroit. Like, he got nothing for Jake Wallman. He hasn't fixed the goaltending situation, and the forward situation isn't too much better.
No, yeah, I definitely concede that his 2.0 of Yzer plan definitely has not worked out for sure. But yeah, I only brought up Lalana in the sense that I've seen rumblings, but that wasn't a fully fleshed out thought. It was just more of what I've seen written.
Fair. The two names that come up. Go ahead, Sean. Sorry.
Let's just say the one name that I don't think is, I think should be, but I haven't heard a lot of is Martin St. Louis.
That's who was on my list. I'm
like, there's all this talk about how awesome the roster of young players that the Montreal Canadiens have, and they just aren't doing anything.
Yeah, they are one of the worst teams. They're worse than, well, they don't have a worse winning percentage in Pittsburgh, but they are a point behind Pittsburgh, but have 2 games in hand. I think it's either him or the other guy that I was going to toss out there is Andre Tournier in Utah. I mean, I think that they came in and wanted to give everybody in Utah from Arizona the opportunity here, but I don't necessarily think that Utah is this exciting team that everybody thinks it is. They're 4 points out of a playoff spot. I could see that being a coaching change as well. Those are the two on my mind.
I didn't realize just how much Utah struggled this season. I'm just pulling up the standings now. I didn't realize they had a losing record. So yeah, I can't really argue with you on that one.
It's not that they're a massively talented team, but they probably will want to bring in a new voice in there at some point. Yeah.
And you also have to strike that balance of their inaugural season. So, like, do you really want to shake things up while things are still fresh and new?
I think that there would have been an argument for me if I was running Utah that I would have tried to make some major changes to improve that lineup to make sure that people were coming.
I mean,
you can make an argument that they did that in the offseason.
Sergachev, Marino.
But they definitely spent more than Arizona traditionally did.
Yeah.
Their goaltending isn't quite up to par.
I see it more as Ryan Smith is definitely more of a pragmatic and not afraid to take gambles type owner, but I also think he's playing the long game, not like we're gonna be the next Vegas sort of mentality. Like, I think he's playing this more the long game, so I don't think he's trying to be like crazy aggressive. So yeah. I think that's why they're maybe playing this in the more of a let's just see how it plays out, ride this first season out, and then make some decisions in the offseason. I'm just not sure they want to shake things up in their inaugural season.
Fair. So there on Wednesday night, for those who are not listening on Thursday night, there were 15 games in the National Hockey League. It is usually a very busy night before the American Thanksgiving. They take American Thanksgiving off. That Wednesday is full of games. It is kind of a fun night to watch hockey. There's lots of hockey, but they did not do the Frozen Frenzy, which they did in October when they had all 32 teams in action. I was going to say 32 games, 32 teams in action. Should there have been a Frozen Frenzy option? Should TNT have done a Frozen Frenzy option? Because that was a TNT night. I don't think it's an ESPN night.
So yeah, that might be the answer to your question right there, because it might be like copywritten by ESPN. I don't know the fine details of it all, but like if that's an ESPN thing and it was TNT who had that night for rights or what have you, that's probably why.
If that's the case, yeah. But they, in my opinion, if you're not gonna put any games on American Thanksgiving, and you're gonna put 15 games, or even just do 16 games on Thanksgiving Eve on the Wednesday, make a big deal of it.
Yeah.
Maybe
you don't
not.
have to
Maybe it's
necessarily
not.
use the same verbiage, but yeah, like you said, make a big deal of it and be like, "Hey,
Own that night."
yeah,
Yeah, I
because there's a certain level of like companies owning certain phrases or what have you, like just maybe lean into the fact that, like, I don't know, I wish I could come up with something on the fly, but like just come up with something that is like your answer or like counterpoint to Frozen Frenzy. Just do something that basically is emphasizing, hey, almost the entire league is playing. Let's, promote this.
Yeah.
And it needs to, and it also needs to be both north and south of the border. Like the fact, like that is such a massive miss that we can't access Frozen Frenzy up here in Canada or something of the same when ESPN does it. And if you got 15 games on the go, have something like that to just, it's like the whole, like this, and make a big deal of it. Because we do Hockey Day in Canada in early in the calendar year every year, but like that, anytime you've got something like this, own it. Make it appointment viewing for not only Americans but Canadians as well.
Do you think the NFL would call with their lawyers if they called it like ice zone or something to that effect instead of red zone?
We've talked about this before, Chris. I think it's tough. It's a lot tougher to do it in hockey.
Yeah,
but it's not even the fact you don't even need to really do that.
I'm not saying like carbon copy the red zone. I just mean in the sense of like just come up with something that's like your own twist on that idea.
Well, even Amazon Prime could have done their coast to coast last night.
Yeah. Instead of doing it on the Thursday because there's no games, do it on there and it'd be fantastic.
Yeah. I think the NHL.
I think at least up here in the up north of the border, outside of Hockey Night in Canada, and now the Prime games, it feels like we just the Rogers treats us as if we're just going to watch it no matter what, because we do. They do not give us the programming that we that I think people are wanting, and that would draw more viewers.
Outside of bringing in Biz as a cameo appearance.
And even that, but that's Hockey Night in Canada. Hockey Night in Canada is going, I feel like they do give us enough of that during Hockey Night in Canada. It's the rest of the week.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, Rogers is basically what's the word I'm looking for? Like they've just gotten too comfortable. They're basically just riding out the rest of this contract at this point.
Yeah. What once the new contract comes in, and there's going to be multiple multiple.
You think
companies
TSN
with-
is getting back in the game, or do you think a online only streamer is going to steal the thunder?
I think Bell will get back into it. I think Prime will. I think Amazon will grow, and I think Rogers will still have a little bit as well.
So you think it'll be a three-headed monster?
Well, I think so. I think there'll be some sort of something like that.
Rogers, TSN or Sportsnet, TSN, and Amazon kind of, maybe not necessarily 33% exactly, but like something to that effect where all three have a piece of the pie.
I think that's what's going to happen. But yeah, it won't be one singular company owning it, because the NHL will maximize the dollar better having multiple parties involved.
Yeah, basically Rogers on this last contract just wanted to make a big splash, hence why they ponied up the money to get it solely just themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the 12 years is almost run up, and yeah, I think probably at this point, especially like with COVID, inflation, all that, they're probably, wanting to pinch a little some pennies at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Let's close off our conversation today about Team Canada's goaltending, which is because the Four Nations rosters come forth here on December so Finland and Sweden December the 2nd, Canada and US will be revealed on Wednesday night hockey on December the 3rd. And the big question in Canada, well, there's still a few questions in terms of who will be on that forward group, especially on the fourth line. I think there's a number of different ways that we can go. Defense has been talked about to death. The goaltending is the big question. And there were a few names that have come up here, other than the three odds-on favorites at this point are Jordan Binnington, Stuart Skinner, and Aiden Hill, but Logan Thompson's name has come up. Cam Talbot's name has come up. Sam Montembeau's name has come up.
Fleury's name I've seen several times.
Mark. Now we'll get to him in a second, but there is one other name that has come up, and he is born in the U.S., but his mom was born in Montreal, and he was a former Ottawa Senator. Is Joey Decord an option for Team Canada?
Can they get him a passport fast enough, I think, is ultimately the answer.
Well, let's make the case for Joey Decord, because before people go, what the hell are you talking about? What, are you serious? We're bringing in Joey Decord? Can we have a summit on Canadian goaltending? 10 wins, 1 shutout, 2.46 goals against average, .916 save percentage. He has won, 3-2 in his last 5 games. Are we really having? Is this serious?
I mean, definitely stats wise, he's definitely making an argument for it.
When you look at the Canadian goaltenders, you've got Cam Talbot's a .923 save percentage. You have Jake Allen, 917, Logan Thompson, 917, Joey Decord's 916, if he's available for them. The odds-on favorites, you got to go all the way down into Jordan Binnington, 898, Aiden Hill, 895, Stuart Skinner, where is he?
The fact that you can't find Stuart Skinner is concerning for me that he's being considered.
To be honest, though,
882.
I haven't heard rumblings like you have, though, about Skinner. Like, I've heard more about Fleury than I've heard about Skinner.
I've seen that the two names that people think are quote-unquote locks are Jordan Binnington and Aiden Hill.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Those are apparently the rumored odds-on favorites. It's the question mark is who's the potential third string guy. And I've heard, like, basically from what I've read and heard, it seems Logan Thompson and Fleury and now Decord are like the 3 most rumored for that third spot. I haven't heard any rumblings about Skinner whatsoever.
Bringing Marc-Andre Fleury, who's played all of 5 games this season, just when you've got Logan Thompson right there.
I guess the question that I would counter that with is overall maybe not tenure, overall pedigree over your career. The fact that, like, yes, he's old, yes, he's past his prime, but he was a top tier goaltender. He's a multi-Stanley Cup winner. He knows what it takes in clutch moments. And let's be honest, we're talking about a third stringer. We're not talking about the guy who's probably playing most of these games.
If you're bringing him, he is a third stringer, but you're also, I think, if you've got the opportunity to bring in someone like a Logan Thompson who could be the starter. Because the talk that I've seen is that, yes, it looks like Bennington and Aiden Hill have the inside track, but that doesn't mean that they are the 1 and 2 on this roster.
But we're also talking about Hockey Canada, which tends to be fairly conservative in their bets. So it's hard to say how they're really going to go with these 3 goalies, especially given the fact that there is no easy choice that just is a runaway home run as far as, this guy.
The argument I would make for Fleury is this is a very short tournament. If you need him to steal 1 game, it's possible he can do it.
And that's more the reason why I was bringing his name up. Was that sort of X factor.
I mean, you can say that about any of the goaltenders we have here.
Do you think
Fleury has done it before, and you could argue that he might potentially be able to do it again. But there's no guarantee. I absolutely concede that.
I think the more I think it is going to be Binnington, Skinner, and Hill. I think that is the way that they're going to end up going.
I will vomit in my mouth if they.
I will also vomit in my mouth. I will be with you on that.
He's not one of the 3 best Canadian goaltenders. He never has been. He never will be.
Who are you saying? Sorry, Binnington or Skinner?
Stuart Skinner is not one of the 3 best Canadian goaltenders. He never has been. He never will be.
No,
sorry, Oilers fans.
Don't worry.
He couldn't even hold the net for the whole playoffs last year.
Don't worry. I'll just make Oilers fans a little bit more mad, right? While you're at it here, Chris. Evan Bouchard is the most overrated defenseman in the National Hockey League. And he's not the best defenseman on the Oilers. They're now going to be a little bit more angry. Don't worry, Chris. I would probably go with a combination of Logan Thompson and Aiden Hill. And I don't even think Jordan Binnington. I don't even know if Jordan Binnington is a legitimate argument. I mean, with the Tkachuk's bags in front of the net, what is this guy going to do with Matthew and Brady Tkachuk going all over him? I think I would probably go with a Thompson, Aiden Hill kind of combination. I think ultimately that's probably your best bet. I don't have a problem with Aiden Hill. I do have an issue with Binnington and Skinner. I don't think that those are the 2.
Also, the fact that I believe a good chunk of Canada's management is based with Vegas. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the combo.
Well, and Doug Armstrong's is the GM, and he's St. Louis.
Fair, but I feel like there's enough arguments that you could throw against Binnington that you might be able to strong arm him if you're in a room with other people to kind of yes, Armstrong does have the GM title, but you might be able to basically, with a majority of the room counteracting him, that he might concede. But we're talking hypotheticals here.
Yeah, I don't know.
if you're so unsure on who the goaltenders are, I think you go and you try and start building for the Olympics in the future. And if you can get Decord, you get him. And you go with Decord, Logan Thompson, and maybe you go with a veteran and like an Aiden Hill or someone like that. Or if you want a true veteran, go Cam Talbot. He's like, he's got what, like he's way. I think if you want to go for a veteran goaltender who you think could quote unquote steal a game behind the defense that the Canadians are going to have, Cam Talbot.
Okay, so I guess my question for you, Sean, at this point is your biggest argument against Fleury his age at this point.
His age, and he's not a starter or even a quote unquote 1B. Gustafsson in Minnesota is the starter, and it's
legitimately in the Vezina conversation.
And legitimately is. Everyone else that's listed is either a 1A or a starter. Taking a true backup as a third guy, just
is Talbot ahead of Lyon in Detroit
for this season? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, he is.
Okay.
Yeah. And Sam Montembeault isn't playing well enough to be on the team.
No.
And Connor Ingram isn't either. So
no. Like the only other that you've got, Kemper and Blackwood are the two other options. I would say I'd have them above. I have both of those guys above Stuart Skinner.
I've heard some people. I think it was specifically TSN guys who were talking about Blackwood in the right situation might be worth considering.
Like he's got decent numbers for playing in San Jose.
Yeah, if you can have decent numbers while playing on the worst team in the league, yeah, you can make an argument there.
Yeah, that is going to be. I mean, the goaltending announcement is going to be the most fascinating announcement on the 3rd, I think. I mean, I think the defense, I think it's generally locked up.
Canada's defense is still solid enough. It might not be as top tier as it's once been, but it's still solid enough that it's not going to be where all the crazy reaction is going to come from. Like you said, it's going to be about the goaltending decision.
Yeah, that and if Connor Bedard doesn't make the team, I think there's going to be a lot of people that will flip. But I think that there's a legitimate argument for him not being on the team. So,
I think again, he throws him a bone to say him as the 13th forward. I think is what will happen.
This is a tournament that you can start seeing where players like him are at for going into the Olympics in 2 years.
Yeah, you include him in practice. He might make a 4th line appearance or what have you. But yeah, he's your spare forward in my book.
But there's a lot of arguments for some really good spare forwards out there that deserve it maybe more.
Fair. Yeah. Like I definitely hear those arguments, but yeah, if we're talking about just like big name factor, yeah, like you said, there's going to be a bunch of people all pissy if he ends up not being on that forward crew.
Yeah. I will be pissy if Evan Bouchard is on the team.
I mean, I can understand it. Don't take Stuart Skinner, please don't.
I legitimately would be shocked if they did.
I think he's going to be there.
Skinner? I haven't heard anyone mention his name before Sean mentioned it.
Yeah. I don't think if he was playing well, yeah, okay. But he hasn't been. There are way better options. And they're smarter than that. He's also someone who's never played for Team Canada. So even when they're conservative and like to play towards have you played the game before? He hasn't.
Nicholson is no longer in the picture. We don't have to worry about this.
Yeah. couple of things. One I will leave for Sean, but I did want to point out and give a little bit of a shout out to Fireside Chat. Of course, it's going to be a pretty heavy week in Calgary Flames land. They are playing 2 of their next games against the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Goodrow family is coming to Calgary on Tuesday, so they are going to be doing a lot of the tribute hockey, like the in-game, pre-game Johnny Gaudreau tributes there will be a lot of those happening in Calgary. Whether they retire the number or what they do on all of that situation, I guess we will see. But I do know that there is Fireside Chat is planning to have a Columbus Blue Jacket podcaster come on and talk a little bit about what the impact of the loss of Johnny Gaudreau has been to Columbus. And again, it is just going to be Sean being in Calgary. We're going to have Swift-Coover. We're now in Swift-Coover here. It's going to be a pretty heavy night in Calgary coming up this weekend. Where kind of those emotions that happened late summer are going to just all fill up again.
Yeah.
And then Sean, you have something you probably want to announce as well. Your Movember?
Oh yeah, move for Movember. Yeah. It's on my.
Yeah. What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah,
Almost at the end.
The question mark in Sean's eyes was like,
the link for my Movember page is on my X account. I've been walking. It's 60 the thing that they put out there is 60 kilometers for the 60 men that we lose every hour to mental health issues. And one of the biggest things that has changed my mental health over the past year has been physical activity. The more active I get, the better I feel, the less angry I feel, the less depressed I feel. So yeah, if you can donate, that's awesome. If not, that's fine as well. This was more of a challenge for myself to get as many kilometers of walking and as being active as many days as I can through November. I've only missed one day this month, and by the end of this weekend on Sunday, yes, that's December 1st, but my Movember won't end until I get 120 kilometers walked consciously, not just throughout the day, but going out and doing it when almost all for me. But yeah, the intentionality of going out and being active is a huge game changer for mental health. So please, if you are struggling, there's people that you can talk to. You can reach out to me if you need to, but I heard this when I was in my deepest, darkest times was the best antidepressant is activity, and I stand by it 110% now. It is huge. Be active, and also be willing to talk about things that if you need to. So yeah, please donate to my Movember page if you can. If not, there's other ways you can help out, and that's just being there for people and helping people be active, because it's awesome.
And while we're talking about men's mental health, I just want to, in the past 24 hours, a friend of mine, he posted about one of his friends had committed suicide over the past couple of days here. And it just brought up a fact of like men's mental health is not talked about nearly enough. And the fact that this is Movember and all that, and there is a little bit more of a focus on it. So, like, guys only make up about 50% of the population, but they take up 80% of all the reported suicides. So no matter how much you are struggling, there is someone out there who loves you and cares for you. Reach out to someone you trust, confide in them, and talk with them, because there is a reason to hold on.
That's a good way to end that. Good way to end. How do we follow everyone?
I am Bearded Canucks 03 on the app formerly known as Twitter, X, as well as Blue Sky.
I am at Schneids on most social media sites, but on Blue Sky, just Schneids is already taken, so I'm Schneids10 on there.
Tyler is TNOBLE. I think he's only on Twitter X.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's on Blue Sky yet, but that's where he'll tell you to calm down. And then Devin is Gordhouse09. Most of his time is on Instagram or with Peelers or with his business. We love Devin. Devin is very busy, unfortunately. And I am KEVOLE on all the socials, including Blue Sky. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Reach out to each other. We will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.